Now on the Two Murays, Strata Matters with Stephen Brell for the Strata Community Association, New South Wales, the peak body representing the strata industry.
You know, you'd think we had training wheels on and this was our first on-air gig. But look, Stephen Brell is joining us back in the studio from Strata Community Association. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
You two can shake hands later. Yeah. I mean, you snuck in as we were chatting.
I know.
Good to see you.
Great to see you guys too, yeah.
We have been thinking a lot about... I couldn't get over last summer. I know I was in Adelaide. You were...
I was here driving the ship.
Mm-hmm. But the number of queries you have had... I mean, your staff must get swamped every single week with queries from people living in a strata setup.
They absolutely do. So, and what part of what our association does is to try and demystify strata. It can be complicated, but we try and make it simple for people. So, there's a lot of things that go on in strata. I think I mentioned this the last time that I was in, that, you know, it's almost considered the fourth tier of government. You know, because you've got people voting, you've got people elected, you've got people paying rates and fees and that sort of thing. So, and there can be complications in strata, but we try and make it simple.
What's changed in the strata world since you and I and Muzz were chatting? Because I think it's LinkedIn. You're sending up posts and you've had meetings and you're doing all these types of forums. And I've got to be honest with you, I haven't had a time to actually get in there and have a look at it. But I'm not under a strata situation, so I wasn't probably focused on it. But has there been any significant changes that people should be aware of?
There's been a few very significant appointments by the Chris Minns government in the last few months. So just recently, after the recent New South Wales state budget, we have our very first Strata Commissioner who's been appointed.
I can see that, yep.
Yeah. So John Minns, who is the Property Commissioner, he now has the title of Property and Strata Commissioner, which is
in relation to
fantastic.
Chris?
He's no relation to Chris. It's just a very, very serendipitous.
Yes, okay.
I bet he's his brother.
Yeah, not quite. The other significant one for all the renters out there is that we also have a rental commissioner who's been appointed as well. Trina Jones is her name.
Rental Commissioner as well. So a very good afternoon to Queensland listeners. I know that, Stephen, you represent New South Wales people in a strata setup, but there's a lot of commonality in the rules. And what is it about... See, I'm the secretary of our strata committee.
That makes. You're the secretary.
I take the best minutes you've ever seen.
You're the secretary.
And my minutes are written up that evening.
I think I'd probably prefer to put you in that than say the treasurer.
I wouldn't be treasurer.
I've seen you spend money.
An ex-banker is treasurer. Thank you very much. It's so important that you actually it's got to be run professionally.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look, there's many owners corporations now that are. They have budgets, you know, some schemes in excess of $1 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's a lot of money under management.
It is. And you really need to know. So the volunteers that go onto the committee like yourselves, they're not necessarily experts in a particular field. They'll certainly have expertise in what they do in life.
Yeah, they'll have a crack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they've got nothing else to do.
Absolutely. But,
I'll have a go at that.
Yeah. There was actually a really interesting news article during the winter time of a strata committee who they effectively ran out of money. It was a very large scheme, and it was all about the new treasurer came in, basically coming into a holy mess because the previous committee hadn't budgeted properly. So again, learning all these skills of running a strata committee is very, very important.
Okay. Now listen, just very quickly, if you're listening to this and you live in a strata situation or you're on a committee or you're about to get into a strata situation or you want to get some advice, have a chat to Stephen, all right? He's here on 131873, 131873. Just off the back of that quickly, if you are about to go into a strata and you get voted onto the committee, where can you go and get experience to be the president or the treasurer or the secretary?
Great question.
I can just see you typing away there.
I take shorthand, thanks very much, and then
Can you do shorthand?
Of course, I can do shorthand.
Really?
80 words a minute.
Oh, sorry. I thought you must have had a few bevies before you went to the meeting.
We have bevies at the meeting.
You take shorthand naturally.
And then I type the minutes up that night.
Sorry, back to the question. Where do you go?
That's all right. So, Strata Community Association, we are actually starting up this very, very thing, learning modules for Strata committees.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, absolutely. So over the winter, there are a few videos on our YouTube page, which I would encourage all Strata owners to go and have a look at.
Yep.
So the role of an owners corporation, the role of a Strata committee, what Strata levies pay for. And these are, 2-3 minute videos that just give a very brief explanation. But part of what we are doing, we are going to be rolling out a learning module for Strata owners to take, and it will guide owners through these very things. So the role of a secretary, role of a treasurer, role of the chairperson, the role of the Strata committee, and all of those particular roles have duties which they must comply with. And so
131873 is our telephone number, 131873. One call from last year has stuck with me.
Yep.
And just walk me through this. There was a lovely woman who told us that she was obliged to sell out of a building that she really enjoyed, loved the neighbours and so on. She could not afford a levy that was going to be proposed.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that call?
Yeah.
I felt my heart broke for her.
Yeah,
she wanted to stay, but she could not afford to. And she was outvoted, and she had no option. She had to sell the unit that she wanted to basically die in and had to move. Where do you go with that? You can't go anywhere.
It's a really difficult situation, that one. And again, for me, it highlights the need for Strata committees and owners to really pay attention to what their responsibilities are of living and owning in a Strata block. So again, if a building budgets correctly during the lifetime of their building, right, they will then always have adequate funds available. So when things like this come up, there are funds in the kitty, they can plan properly, and they can do whatever maintenance is required.
Is that your sinking fund you're talking about?
That's their sinking fund,
Right.
yeah, that's right. In New South Wales, I love New South Wales because we always change the terminology, but it's now called a capital works fund in New South Wales, sinking fund in other areas around the country. However, it highlights the need for me for proper financial planning. And this comes back to my earlier point about owners' corporations really being little businesses or the fourth level of government,
Sure.
and planning properly. So,
But you talk to people that are involved in a strata complex and they're not on the committee, and the strata fees go up, right? The fees go up. Why have they gone up? Oh, we haven't got enough money in the sinking fund. Well, how much money do you need in a sinking fund? Is there a formula to say this unit block's got 20 units, it's 20 years old, roughly this is what you should have in there for capital works down the track?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where you would get in someone. There are specialists that prepare these reports for an owners corporation.
Sure.
So what they will do, they'll come out to the building, they'll have a look at the state of repair of the building, they'll have a look at how much money's in the committee, and then they'll assist you with your long-term, your short, medium and long-term planning of how much money you should be putting away. So a great example would be a lift might be 20 years into its life, and they'll predict, right, this lift has got 10 years to go, and in 10 years time it's going to cost you X amount to replace, and this is how much money you should be putting away. And again, I would encourage anyone in a strata situation, it's the classic thing of people often sacrifice their current levies for future maintenance. So, i.e., there's a real sentiment out there in the marketplace that a cheap levy is a good levy, and that's not the case.
No, it's not.
It's not the case. You really need to. It's like think of it as your super. The more you put in super, the more you're going to have, in your kitty for when you retire. And it's a very similar situation in a strata block.
I live on the ground floor, and I only use the elevator twice a year when we go up for strata meetings with my my neighbour.
To the meeting room.
I want to get my money's worth.
You go up there to the meeting room where the winery and the pool table are.
That's right.
The second story. How important then is it for somebody that is about to purchase a unit or purchase a property that's involved in strata to get their eyes over the minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
You buy a place and you get the strata fees, and all of a sudden they've increased them by 35%. It's like, hang on, where'd this come from? I can't afford this. And it comes back to the story that Muzz just told you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's crucially important. It's a common practice in New South Wales for purchasers to obtain what's called a strata report.
Okay.
And that will give them an insight into the scheme, how it's running, what sort of works are coming up, what sort of money they've got in the kitty.
Okay.
So there are these types of reports available so people can go in and buy with confidence.
Is that to then suggest there's an obligation on owners of a current strata setup there's someone new coming in, is there an obligation that all that information, relevant information, important financial information, be provided to the new owner?
It absolutely. It's actually one of the
legal
responsibilities.
requirement.
Yeah, it's one of the responsibilities of a scheme. So you're the secretary in your scheme. There'd be a requirement there that you keep minutes in a minutes book, and that they are made available for prospective purchasers to come in and have a look at.
I've only been to 2 meetings as secretary, and
but there's only 2 units in your block.
No, there's not. There's
Are
5.
you sure?
5.
Didn't you buy 4 units and knock all the walls out?
Shut up, you idiot. That's interesting because, okay, so you have to keep a written record that is provided to an incoming purchaser.
Yeah, that's right. So, and again, that inspection or that inspection report is voluntary. You don't have to do it, but again, I would encourage if you are buying into you do it.
Okay. And Roz in Moss Vale says perhaps that poor lady who I mentioned from last year, she could have got a reverse mortgage to perhaps fund that levy.
She could have.
But then you're getting into more financial issues, aren't you?
Yeah. There's actually, just on that point, just before we move on, there are a whole raft of different Strata Loan facilities which have actually now come onto the market. So so an owner's corporation can borrow money themselves.
Right.
And they now have this idea of a split loan where you can actually split the loan. So if Mr. Murray over here, who's got plenty of cash, he doesn't want to get a loan, he can pay his levy.
He can.
And
everybody
the
else's.
other Murray over here, who can't afford it,
that's me.
They can get in on the loan.
Oh,
so
you're looking after me.
Yeah.
God love you.
Yeah.
I knew I loved you for a reason. Stephen Brell's in the studio from Strata Community Association. He's going to be a regular guest on the program. Any questions about living in Strata bodies, anything you need to know, call up and have a chat to him. And I think that stat that Stephen shared with us some time ago, what is it, by 2030? Nearly 50%.
Yeah, by 2040, more than 50% of people will be living in a strata complex.
Just frightening stuff. 131873, we've got some lines available, all right, 131873. It's the Two Murays. Good to have you company.
And on, let's go to our first call of the afternoon because John's online from Padstow. John, very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm just querying. We get levy notices. I've got one here, which is levies due in October 2023. Now, as far as I understand, you're allowed 1 month to pay before you start paying a 10% interest for overdue rates. Is that correct? You have 1 month to pay?
Yeah, that is. So this is one of the mysteries with strata levies. So all levies have a due date, and I'm going to presume the levy that you have there is due on the 1st of October. It does help the owner's corporation if owners do pay their levies on their due date, because like any entity that's got bills to pay, they're worrying about cash flow and so forth. But to your point, interest on overdue levies cannot accrue for 30 days.
So you got a month's grace.
Yeah, you got a month's grace.
Got a month's grace, but we also have a special levy which is due in November.
Yep.
What's the special levy for, John?
Well, it's townhouse complex, and it's just general maintenance, also painting of balconies and things like that in one of the state. There's 3 stages.
Right. Yep. Okay.
So I've got a special levy which is due in November. For $1,100, and I've got the levies which are due in October for the same amount. But on this statement I've got for November, it says levies in arrears, referring to the October. Well, it's not technically in arrears yet, is it?
Well, if the due date was the 1st of October, it would be in arrears. So your due date is your due date. So it might have been the 1st of October. Yep. Even though interest isn't payable for 30 days, the levy is still due.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
John, I hope that answers your question. Stephen Brell is with us from Strata Community Association. Don's on the line from Chatswood. G'day, Don.
Hey, guys. Hi, Stephen. I just really give you some information. We own a unit in a strata block, but there's no strata group running it.
Right.
So the owner just sends out random things saying you need to pay this for your levy.
Yeah,
We've got no idea what it's for or where it goes.
He wants to go on holiday to Fiji. That's what he wants, Don.
Yeah. Can I ask, Don, how many apartments are in your complex, or how many units?
I think there's about 15.
Okay. Well, I can let you know that you are in an owner's corporation, and who's ever running it should be having regular meetings. And that's where you set your strata levies and you prepare your budgets.
We're not in an owner's corporation. As I said, he was sending it out an amount. We were put on the market before the interest rate rises went crazy, and we had a lot of interest, but people were like, well, sorry, there's no strata. And so then once things started to change, we took it off the market.
Okay. Do you know what...
But there's been... Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, do you know what type of title your block is? So is it a company title property? Is it a leasehold? Is it a...
Torrens.
It's as far as I was concerned, it was a strata title.
Yeah. Okay. So if
it's not Torrens, it's neither of those.
Yeah. If it's a strata title, then I can assure you do have an owners corporation, and everyone should be. So there's no building owner because all the owners collectively own the common property.
Do you want to get Don's details? Maybe
it might be a wise idea. Don.
Can you stay there, Don?
We'll just get some details from you. But I thought there was and we'll give those details, Don, so do not hang up. We'll put you back to the switch. I thought there was a legal obligation. If you're living in that environment, you have to be part of an organisation, a setup that actually runs that block.
Yeah, absolutely.
A legal obligation.
But I wonder how many blocks don't have them. How would you know?
You don't know because it's the obligation of the original owner or the developer to form the owners corporation. Right, so perhaps in Don's situation, the developer of the property might still own the majority of the properties. So even so, it must be run properly and as an owners corporation.
Okay, quick question from what Don said, and it was something I wanted to ask you earlier.
Yep.
Can the owners corporation be held responsible for the fact that they haven't managed the funds properly and they've asked people to sink a lot of money into the fund, and as a result, people can't sell their unit because no one wants to buy them because there's too much money to be handed in? Can you actually legally go back to the, what do you call them now?
The Strata committee members.
And say, you know
absolutely.
what, you guys, you're mine in a court.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, and this is something which changed in New South Wales in 2015. So the Strata committee members or the office bearers, they have similar responsibilities to the directors of a company.
Yep.
Okay, and they've got to make sure that everything is running properly for the benefit of all owners.
Yep.
So, yep.
What happens if it's proposed that, the chair of the body corporate says, I want to propose a special levy to paint the building or whatever it might be, and the majority of the other owners say, well, no, we don't think it's necessary?
It's majority rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, an owners corporation has obligations. So if you, and this does often happen in strata, unfortunately, where you get a group of owners who have got similar minded and they don't want to maintain the building properly. Okay, when that occurs, they can actually, if you're in the minority and you realise that your scheme is not being managed properly, you can go to the government and apply for what's called a compulsory appointment.
Okay,
and that's where all the rights of the owners are taken away and placed into the hands of a professional strata manager who then runs the building. Right now, they will generally be appointed for 12 months, and their job is to get the building back on track. Right. And then, if the owners behave themselves, the building's then handed back to the owners to administer amongst themselves.
And that administrator, for want of a better term, will instruct them to set up a working committee that's functioning, that has a legitimate financial structure. A legal structure to underpin that building.
Yeah, that's right. So they'll be there so that when the compulsory manager is appointed, all the rights of the owners are taken away.
Right.
Right. And the manager basically has to set up the structure, however, to make sure that when it's handed back, the owners can actually function the way they should be functioning.
I think what I'm learning from this is that if you're going to sit on an owners corporation, you've got to take this damn seriously.
Absolutely.
This ain't, I don't want a gum tree planted in that grass area. I want a eucalyptus tree or whatever it may be. This is serious stuff.
It is. And it's the reason why education for strata owners is so important. And it's part of the reason why that our association is going down that road to create these modules for residents to understand what their rights and responsibilities are.
Absolutely. So no offence, but to people that are maybe, retired, they're moved into a complex, they've got nothing else to do, and they go, I'll be part, I'll have a crack at it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, don't have a crack at it. You need somebody in there that knows what they're doing.
I'm just moving in with you.
Yeah, well,
when the bride kicks me out, I'm moving in with you.
Because obviously you can be legally and financially liable if you do something wrong.
Yeah, you are. So, again, I would encourage most owners to be educated. I mean, look, strata living can be complicated, and there are some strata committee members that have a huge amount of experience, but schemes are getting far more complicated, larger, and again, there are a lot more obligations that go along with running.
Tax Act.
Yeah.
131873 is our phone number. Stephen Brell is our special guest this afternoon, and Peter joining us from Cogra. Good afternoon, Pete.
Yes, good afternoon. We've just recently had a person come in and buy up 3 units in our block of 8, and they're moving pretty quickly. Have now become involved in the Stratus management side of things. Some of us there were a little bit concerned that they might be out to take over the building, so to speak. We don't know. Right.
So, are you in an older block there, Peter, or?
Yeah, it's built in the 1970s.
Yeah, this is something that does happen, where a developer may want to come in and actually buy the block and then redevelop the site, right?
So knock down the existing structure.
Knock down the existing building and build a
50
brand new.
years ago, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the building might be coming towards the end of its economic life, and there might have been a rezoning, and so now they can actually put more units onto that site. And again, it's not. No different from a developer coming along and buying a whole row of houses to put up a new unit block and so forth. Okay. Now, regardless of that, they still have obligations to manage the building in the best interests of all owners. Okay. And again, if you think you're being bullied or pressured into making decisions, that's where you can go to fair trading, and you can go down a similar path to what I recommended last time, which was getting a compulsory manager involved.
Okay. Before we take a break, quick question. Is there a standardised quorum in regards to decision making?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, so every strata meeting, so an owners corporation has a quorum of 25% of owners.
It's a percentage. It's not physical heads.
Yeah, and strata committees have a quorum of 50%.
25% of individual units or owners?
It's 25% of what's called your unit entitlement, which is akin to your shareholding in the building. That's right.
This is another discussion for another day. All right.
131873 is our telephone number. We have the best in the business with us, Stephen Brell from the Strata Community Association, answering your questions, and they're very important questions in many, many cases. It's not just about, as Mus said, the gum tree in the corner. It's about your financial future, your financial security in terms of the real estate that you have at the moment. So it's pretty important stuff. 131873. This is the Two Mussies.
Airways.com.
Yes, dos Marios. And the Strata Community Association, Stephen Brell is with us this afternoon. 131873 is our telephone number. Got a couple of calls there. A couple of lines are free as well. How about this? This is very interesting. Special Strata Levy, Stephen, 1.2 million across the unit block. 3 consecutive payments of $5,000 in a row, so $15,000 per owner. No quotes for this special levy. Is that even legal?
Yeah, look, there's nothing in the legislation that requires owners' corporations for obtaining quotes. It may well be that the Treasurer has said, look, we need to start raising money because they know the expense is going to be significant.
Yep.
Right? So they might be getting the money into the kitty first and then going out to tender for the quotes. And that's not an uncommon practice. It would be advisable to get quotes so you've got a ballpark figure of how much something might cost.
How would you know what to raise if you didn't know what it was going to cost?
Because a scope of works might have been put together by an engineer or someone like along those lines.
Or a friend of somebody on the committee.
Yeah. But, I mean, look, before you enter into a contract, I would be encouraging people to go out and obtain quotes. And in the New South Wales legislation, there is an obligation if any one particular line item is over $30,000, then you must obtain quotes.
Is that right?
It seems as plain as the nose in your face. Go and get 3 quotes.
Yep.
Don't you think?
Well, you normally get quotes before you set your budget.
Yeah.
Obviously not with this mob.
Yeah.
No, but they want to get like a bunch of cash together because in a strata environment, you might have 10 units. Over the next 10, 20 years, there's going to be need for some expenditure, right? Some routine maintenance. Let's just get the money in the kitty first, as Stephen says. Okay. 131873 is our telephone number. Kathy is joining us. Kathy, very good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you going?
Now, this is a Canberra question. My husband and I bought, or our super fund bought, a unit in Canberra in March. We settled at either 2 p.m. or 2:30. Did all our strata reports, etc. At 5:30 or 6 o'clock that evening, there was a strata meeting, and it was put to the meeting that our block of units has the cladding on it that was on the tower in the block.
The Grenfell Tower.
Yes, sorry, couldn't think of the name. The whole block to replace is in the vicinity of 1.8 million. Our share, it's been voted, and depending on your entitlement, our share is $52,000. So it's going to be $100 a week for the next 10 years. We're just wondering, my son reckons that we should have recourse because we didn't know about it from even the previous owner, but I'm not sure because it hadn't come up on anything.
It sounds like the timing of your purchase was just unfortunate. There should have been, in the records of the scheme, there should have been a meeting notice that would have alerted you to the fact that this was actually coming up. Do you know if you obtained a strata report before you purchased?
Yes, we did.
You did.
We actually exchanged late the year before, like in November last year, and then we didn't settle until March at the vendor's request for his financial situation. So we agreed to a delayed settlement. So we sort of are feeling a bit duped. Yeah,
I'd be definitely going back to your solicitor and just going back and seeking their advice on that, because if that should have been in the records.
100% it should have been.
But in all honesty, what happens if Kathy just haven't got the money, and people that live in these environments haven't got it?
Yeah.
What do you do if you just haven't got it?
You have to sell.
Yeah, you have to sell, or again, get your own personal loan, or as I was mentioning earlier, the owners' corporation can take out a loan. And what Kathy was describing there, the most states and territories around Australia have put in a compensation fund for owners. So in New South Wales, it's called Project Remediate, and that is where the government is giving interest-free loans out to strata owners who are impacted by this combustible cladding.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So, and again...
Does that apply in the ACT? We're not sure.
I'm not quite sure. But again, most territories around... down in Victoria, they're paying for the whole thing, but they're not doing it quite the same way.
No, but interest-free is fine.
Yep.
But you're still going to pay for it, haven't you?
That's
right. Wow.
Interesting question here from Richard. Thank you for your query via text. Stephen, do you also provide information to your organisation for industrial commercial strata? If not, you may be a residential strata only. Is there a commercial information person or place that we can contact?
No, absolutely. Our association covers all aspects of strata. Strata, community title, company title. We can help people with that. There are fewer and fewer company title properties in Sydney, which is the reason why I asked that question to the gentleman earlier.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely, we can help you with residential, retail, commercial, industrial.
The text from Susan, we didn't ask that, did we? Just off the back of the caller that we had about the developer buying 3 units out of 8. Susan's asking what can be done to prevent them from taking over. Is this common? Because she said it's quite concerning.
It's bullying.
Look, there's nothing that can stop a person buying a property. However, an owners' corporation, which is the collective, still have an obligation to be run properly. So if it's not being run properly and the owners' corporation is not living up to its statutory obligations, that's when you can apply for a compulsory appointment.
Okay, all right. Stephen Brell is with us from Strata Community Association 131873.
And we're joined by Michelle from Turramurra in Sydney. Good afternoon, Michelle.
Hello, how are you going?
Pretty well, thank you. What's your query for Stephen, Michelle?
Okay, so buying into a strata industrial unit, looking through, it's about 2 years old, looking through the inaugural minute that was done, it talks about that the owners, which were predominantly the developer at the time, on the committee, said that they would not engage an independent review of any rectification from the original building that was done, like an independent review. Is that something that's required as part of the inaugural meeting for a strata building? And if they've agreed not to engage someone to independently review it, what period do you have if you buy in and find that, you've got a problem? What's your recourse?
Yeah, so commercial and industrial properties have a slightly different law here, in that a residential building, you are covered by the Home Building Act. In an industrial or commercial complex, you are effectively only governed by what warranty the builder gives you. and that would have been done at the time that the building contract was entered into. So often that warranty will only be a 90-day warranty, believe it or not.
Okay.
So
why is that remotely okay?
It's
That's
regrettably
just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, hello, you're dropping a whole lot of cash.
Yep.
The most cash most of us will ever drop on a single item in our lives.
Yep.
90 days, you get better bloody recourse than a dud suit,
You do.
don't you?
How you going? You right?
It just makes
I
me
know,
cranky.
I know.
People buy in good faith
Yeah.
and get absolutely dudded.
Yeah.
And this is the reason
correct.
why it is so important to get the right advice before you go in, and get your reports, get all your legal advice before you buy, so you understand what you're getting into.
Okay, so question for you: who can make the decision to sell off to an individual owner public space within a complex? And I won't go into too much, but think about Muzz's place, right?
Yep.
You walk through an area.
Vast deck, you mean?
That huge deck, and the swimming pool, and with the water slide and the dolphins, and it's shared by 3 people.
The dolphins died.
Who? If say Muzz said, I would like the pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whose decision is it to say, yep, you know what, we'll sell that to you?
It's the owner's corporation. So, and again, in that situation,
So they could all get together and say, yeah, Muzz can buy it.
They could all get together and do that. Again, the threshold for that approval is 75%.
Mm-hmm.
So 75% of owners have to agree to it. That's
Right.
point number one.
Owners, individual owners.
Yeah, individual owners. Yep.
Yep.
And secondly, there may be council requirements in place. So you'd have to get that approval through. So there'd be 2 hurdles there.
Okay, so
to
if there
get
were,
over.
just say for argument's sake, there was an upgrade that needed to be done to the unit block.
Yep.
People just didn't have the money. But one of the owners said, I'll tell you what, you give me that pool and I'll give you the cash straight into your account.
Yeah, that's right. That could work.
Righto.
Yep.
Okay.
Susan has a follow-up, a supplementary question. What if a developer buys more than half of the units? That effectively makes the developer the only voice on the Strata committee?
Same rules apply. So even if you're the minority, you're 1 owner out of 10, and that developer still has obligations to make sure that the owner's corporation is run and they are fulfilling their statutory duties.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that could be... Regrettably, we do see this out there, that a developer will come in and then they'll propose just exorbitant levies, which are not required. And again, that's trying to force people out, to pay their levies.
Because I'm telling you, we're running out of land, and developers love making money.
Yeah.
And they will just take anybody with them, even their parents, if it means a buck. And you can see them coming in and buying up 3, 4, 5 units in a complex so they can take over the whole complex.
Yeah, and this is a change in our legislation that occurred again back in 2015 because the government recognised that there were a lot of strata buildings getting towards the end of their economic life.
Yeah.
And they found that this is a good way for developers to come in, again, offer proper compensation to owners to sell and then rebuild buildings.
Scary stuff.
Stephen Brell with us. We've got time for one more call. And Tony is joining us. And I think this is a very, very good question because, Tony, good afternoon to you. This goes to the heart of strata committees. You have to have capable people on them, don't you? Good afternoon, mate.
G'day, guys. G'day, Muzzies. Great to hear you back on air.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, mate.
I've been at my apartment 27 years and have been on the committee all that time and head of the committee a number of times. And I fear for many people that don't have the skill set, particularly when it comes to having works and or projects done, because the strata managers, and we've been through a few strata managers through that time, are great at their job, mostly sitting in the office. But when it comes to managing a technical project, whether it's roof maintenance, plumbing, a paint job, unless you have strata committee people aware, in tune and observant as to what's going on and communicative with the neighbours, then you could be wasting a lot of money.
You
got
could.
many examples, but I just see that as a big problem in the future, and I don't know how that's going to get sorted, other than seeing people getting ripped off because when tradies come to the complex, you can see the dollar signs spinning in their eyeballs, and it's often a gouging amount on the quotes.
Sure is, and that's not uncommon at all, Stephen.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, and this is where your strata manager, particularly if it's a significant project, they would generally be putting in place a project manager or an engineer or a contract administrator to oversee that process in conjunction with the Strata Committee.
Yeah.
So then you're making sure that your scope of works is correct, your contracts are correct, and the amounts you're paying are correct as well.
Hey, listen, we've run out of time. We could sit here for 3 hours and talk to you, but yeah, we're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Great to see you. Thank you for coming in and contributing to the program and putting people's minds at rest and answering questions. So Strata Community Association.
Yes.
Telephone number if people want to ring you.
It is 9492
Yep.
8200.
Yep.
Again, Google or search Strata Community Association.
Yep.
You'll be directed to our website. And as I said, we have a whole bunch of videos now on our YouTube page for simple strata questions and so forth that will give people assistance.
Good on you. We'll see you next week. Yeah.
No worries at all. Absolutely.
Thanks,
Stephen Brell there from the Strata Community Association. I did audition for the videos that Stephen was producing.
Oh, how'd they go?
No, knocked me back.
No good.
Wasn't good looking enough.
9492 8200.
This is the Two Muzzies Sunday afternoon. Thanks for being with us.